When Tyler moved in, it wasn't supposed to change anything. I'd been living in the apartment alone for almost 2 years, a quiet one-bedroom that overlooked a narrow alley and a dying maple tree. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Or at least, it was until rent went up and my freelance gig stopped covering it. That's when I started half joking, half despairing to friends about finding a roommate. Enter Tyler. He was a mutual friend of my college buddy Mark, who said, "He's cool, laid back, won't bother you, plus he's desperate for a place." That's all I needed to hear. We messaged a few times, exchanged info, and 2 weeks later he was at my front door with 2 suitcases, a guitar, and a box of ramen. He smiled like he already belonged here. "Hey, thanks for this, man. You're a lifesaver." I just nodded and helped him carry his stuff in. Tyler moved into the bedroom, and I took the living room, since I already had my setup there. Bookshelves, desk, my old leather couch that squeaked when you sat too hard. I told myself it was temporary, a financial decision, nothing more. But from the moment he stepped into my space, the air felt different. Tyler was the kind of guy who made chaos look like a lifestyle choice. His clothes were always slightly wrinkled, his hair messy in a charming, I didn't try but it works way. He left coffee mugs on windowsills and hummed pop songs in the shower. His laughter came easy, loud, contagious, completely unfiltered. Was the opposite. My socks were paired, my bookshelf alphabetized, my life a series of neat habits. I liked quiet, order, schedules. I'd lived alone for years, not because I couldn't find someone, but because solitude felt safer, cleaner, less complicated. Tyler didn't care about complications. The first night, we ate pizza straight from the box, sitting cross-legged on the floor. He told me stories about growing up in Florida, about his bartending job, about a tattoo he got in Thailand after a breakup, a tiny lightning bolt on his left hip. I tried not to look when he pulled up his shirt to show me. I wasn't interested. Not like that. At least that's what I told myself. He was just my roommate, that's all. But still, there were moments. Little things. Like how he said my name differently, slower, softer, or how he leaned against doorways when he talked to me, his eyes lingering a second too long, or how he flopped next to me on the couch, thighs touching, and didn't move away. Didn't move either. I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything. We were just getting used to each other, learning the rhythm of cohabitation. A casual, friendly, slightly awkward dynamic, exactly what it should be. But sometimes, late at night, when I heard him laughing to himself in his room or singing under his breath while brushing his teeth, I'd catch myself smiling. And sometimes when he walked around shirtless after a workout, damp towel slung over his shoulder, I'd find excuses to look anywhere else. The floor, the fridge, my phone, while my heart stuttered like a broken metronome. It wasn't attraction, just proximity. That's what I kept telling myself. Just roommates. Nothing more. At least, that's how it started. Living with Tyler was like living with a storm you couldn't help but watch. Not the dangerous kind. The kind that rolled in slow, warm, and electric. You could feel it before it arrived, in the way the air shifted, in the way your skin prickled. The first few weeks blurred into routines. We found a rhythm that worked, most of the time. I handled the dishes, he took out the trash. He liked his music loud. I liked mine low. Somehow, we met in the middle. Evenings became our unofficial us time. Neither of us said it out loud, but it happened naturally. He'd come home from bartending late, toss his keys in the bowl by the door, and flop onto the couch next to me. Sometimes he brought takeout, sometimes just stories. I'd be watching something, anything, just to have background noise while working, and he'd end up staying, asking a million questions about characters he hadn't seen. Wait, so, the guy with the beard is the killer? No, Tyler. He's the therapist. Same thing. It turned into a game. He'd interrupt. I'd mock scold him. And somewhere in between eye rolls and sarcastic commentary, we started laughing more than we watched. There was a comfort in it. In the way he'd lean back with his arms stretched wide across the couch, his thigh pressed against mine without a second thought, or how he'd hand me a fry without asking, just assuming I wanted one. The touches started out small, accidental. At least I told myself that. His fingers brushing mine when we both reached for the remote. A hand on my back when he squeezed past me in the kitchen, his head dropping onto my shoulder when he was too tired to hold it up. And I played it cool, pretended none of it meant anything. But every time he touched me, something inside tightened, like a string pulling taut. Then there was the shirtlessness. Tyler had this habit of peeling his shirt off the second he got home, like it offended him. He'd toss it somewhere, grab a drink, and start talking like nothing was unusual. And maybe for him, it wasn't. Maybe he didn't notice how my gaze kept drifting. I did. I noticed everything. The slope of his collarbone, the faint tan lines across his shoulders, the trail of ink from that lightning bolt tattoo, barely visible under the waistband of his sweatpants. I never looked long, just enough to torture myself. One night, we sat cross-legged on the floor with Thai food between us. A movie played in the background, but we weren't watching it. He was telling me about an ex, a guy named Darren, who he said was technically not a mistake, but definitely not a highlight. I laughed. He smiled. At me, all slow and open. "What about you?" he asked, chewing on a piece of tofu. "Anyone worth mentioning?" I hesitated. My past wasn't dramatic, mostly short-lived things that fizzled before they even sparked. I told him about James, a guy I dated in college, smart, quiet, didn't like touch. I related to that back then. Maybe too much. Tyler looked at me, like he was trying to read between the lines. "You ever fall for someone you weren't supposed to?" The question landed heavy. "I don't know," I said. "I try not to expect much from people." He nodded like he understood. "Yeah, safer that way." There was silence then. Not awkward, just dense. Like we were both trying not to say something. And still, I kept telling myself I was imagining things, the way he looked at me too long sometimes, the way his jokes flirted right up to the edge of something else. We were getting comfortable. Too comfortable, maybe. But I didn't stop it. Whatever we were, whatever this was, I wasn't ready to name it, not yet. The storm rolled in just after midnight. I'd seen it brewing from the window earlier. Bloated clouds, the low pressure pressing against the glass like something waiting to be let in. But I didn't think much of it at the time. I went to bed around 1, hoping the sound of rain would lull me to sleep like it usually did. It didn't. Instead, I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the creak of wind through the walls and the staccato of branches tapping the window pane. The thunder came in slow, lazy bursts at first, then built into a rhythm. My phone read 1:47 a.m. I shifted, pulled the blanket higher, tried to quiet the thoughts pacing my head. Mostly of Tyler. I wasn't supposed to be thinking about the way his laugh lingered in a room, or how his hand brushed mine earlier that night when we both reached for the same fortune cookie. Stupid things, small things, but they felt bigger in the dark. I turned onto my side, then onto my back, then my stomach. Nothing worked. Sleep was teasing me from across the room. And then I heard the soft click of my door. At first, I thought I imagined it. The wind, maybe, or my nerves. But then I heard it. Bare feet on hardwood. Slow, careful steps. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The mattress dipped beside me. Then the blanket lifted. And then I felt it. Tyler sliding under, his body curling close to mine, the scent of his soap and rain-damp skin following him in. His chest pressed lightly to my back, warm and real. "Don't move," he whispered, voice low and raw. My heart stopped. Then it started again, hard, too hard. I stayed perfectly still. His breath touched the back of my neck, soft and uneven. I could feel his arm draped across the pillow behind me. Not touching me. Not yet. Just hovering. I wanted to ask what he was doing, why he was here, but I couldn't speak. My throat was locked tight. He shifted closer. Our legs touched. Then, our shoulders. His body radiated heat. Mine tried to keep from trembling. "I had a nightmare," he murmured finally, like an apology. "It was stupid. I just didn't want to be alone." I swallowed. Still didn't turn around. We lay like that for what felt like forever. The thunder outside cracked long and deep. Rain hammered the windows like it wanted in. And here he was, already inside. Tyler, in my bed. Beneath my blanket. His fingers brushed against the back of my hand. Barely. But it was enough to send a current through me. I could feel his breathing now, slow and deliberate, trying to calm himself. Or maybe me. My instincts warred with each other. One said, "Move. Speak. Run." The other whispered, "Stay." So I stayed. "I used to crawl into my brother's bed when I was a kid," he said quietly. "Storms freaked me out. He'd just sigh and shove over to make room." I smiled at the image, still didn't turn. Tyler exhaled like he heard it. "Guess that's weird, huh?" "No," I said finally. "It's not weird." It came out hoarse, half breath, half voice. He shifted again, and this time his arm slid lightly over my waist. Not possessive, not asking. Just there. I didn't flinch. My fingers moved on instinct, inching back just enough to brush his. He didn't pull away. Our hands sat still against the sheets, just touching. For the first time all night, the thunder didn't scare me. "Sorry if this is," he began, then stopped. "It's okay," I said before he could finish. "Really." And I meant it, because in that moment, nothing else existed. Not the questions, not the awkwardness, not the rules I'd made for myself about boundaries and friendships and what this could or couldn't be. There was just warmth and breath and the steady beat of something between us that neither of us dared name. I finally turned, slowly. He was watching me, his eyes shadowed but soft in the dark. Searched mine like he was waiting for permission he didn't want to ask for. We didn't kiss. We didn't even speak. But the air between us felt thick with something unspoken. Some quiet agreement that, whatever this was, it mattered. I reached up, brushing a piece of hair from his forehead. His eyes fluttered shut. And then he leaned in, forehead resting lightly against mine, our breathing synced, slow, careful, intimate. Not a word was said after that, and we didn't move. Not until morning. I woke to sunlight bleeding through the curtains and the faint hum of Tyler's voice from the kitchen. The space beside me was empty. Still warm, but empty. For a second, I wasn't sure if it had even happened. Maybe I dreamt it. Maybe the storm and the late hour had blended into something my mind made up, some hallucination born of wanting too much and sleeping too little. But then I saw the faint indent on the pillow next to mine, and the crumpled edge of the blanket, and I knew. It happened. Tyler had slid under my blanket in the middle of the night and held me. He'd rested his forehead against mine, and I had let him. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding in that too loud, too aware way it does when you know something just shifted and you're not sure if it was good or bad. In the kitchen, he was making eggs, just making eggs. No sign that anything had changed. He was humming some indie song, barefoot, shirtless again, of course, and acting like this was just another morning. "Hey," he said when he saw me. "You want some?" His voice was casual. Too casual. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. I padded over in silence and leaned against the counter, watching him work the frying pan like he hadn't just curled up in my bed a few hours ago and breathed me in like I was air. He slid a plate in front of me. We ate. No mention of the night. No whispered follow-up, not even a glance that said, "Hey, remember that time I crawled into your bed and held you like it meant something?" I couldn't tell if I was relieved or disappointed. Probably both. The rest of the morning passed in a haze. We moved around each other like always, passing in the hallway, brushing shoulders near the bathroom sink. But each touch felt sharper. Now, more dangerous, like fire disguised as routine. I kept replaying the night over and over, his breath on my neck. His hand across my waist, the way he looked at me in the dark, not confused, not unsure, just there, open. Had that really happened? And if it did, why weren't we talking about it? I caught him watching me once, mid-morning, while I was scrolling through emails I wasn't reading. His gaze lingered too long, his expression unreadable. When our eyes met, he didn't flinch. Instead, he asked, "You good?" 2 words. Simple. But they hit like a punch. I wanted to say, "No, I'm not. I've been thinking about your heartbeat against my back all morning and wondering why you're pretending like it didn't mean anything." But I didn't say that. I just nodded. "Yeah, I'm good." He held my gaze for a second longer, like he didn't quite believe me. Then he gave a small nod and turned back to whatever he was doing. Laundry, maybe, or escaping. The silence after that was different, not the easy kind we used to fall into while watching shows or eating dinner. This one was tight, fragile, like we were both standing on a frozen lake, afraid to shift too much and crack the surface. Later that night, we were both in the living room, me on the couch, Tyler on the floor, legs stretched out, tapping away at his phone. I kept sneaking glances, waiting, hoping he'd bring it up. He didn't. I almost said something. The words built in my throat, heavy and half-formed. "Tyler, about last night. Did you mean to... Was that something or just..." But every time I opened my mouth, nothing came out. Just silence and a sip of water and the sound of the TV filling the space we wouldn't. Eventually he stood up and stretched, yawning like it was just any night. "I'm heading to bed," he said. "Don't stay up too late." I nodded. Night. He lingered for half a second, just long enough to make me wonder again if he would say something. But he didn't. He just walked off down the hall, the soft thud of his footsteps fading behind him. I stayed there, staring at the dark screen of the TV, my chest tight with words I hadn't said and questions I wasn't sure I was allowed to ask. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. Just didn't know which was worse. A week passed, 7 long, quiet, heavy days. We moved around each other like planets locked in orbit, close enough to feel the pull, too scared to collide. The night he slid into my bed had faded from conversation, but it hadn't faded from me. Not even a little. I thought about it constantly. How close we'd been. How natural it felt. How he'd disappeared by morning like it hadn't happened, and we never talked about it. Not when we passed each other in the kitchen. Not when we sat on opposite ends of the couch, pretending to be interested in reruns. Not even when I caught him looking at me like he wanted to say something and just didn't. The silence was starting to rot everything. It finally snapped over dirty dishes. Of all things, a couple of bowls in the sink. I'd had a long day. Work had been brutal. The subway smelled like something had died. And all I wanted was to come home and feel like something made sense. But I walked into the kitchen and saw his breakfast dishes still sitting in the sink for the third day in a row. "Seriously?" I muttered, a little louder than I meant to. Tyler was in the living room, half watching a game on his laptop. "What?" "The sink," I snapped. "Again? You said you'd take care of it yesterday." He stood up, brows pulling together. "Okay, I forgot. You don't have to bite my head off about it." "It's not about the damn dishes, Tyler." He blinked. "Then what the hell is it about?" I stared at him, jaw clenched. Everything I'd been bottling up for the past week started to shake loose. "You've been walking around like nothing happened," I said, my voice cracking more than I wanted, like that night didn't mean anything. His whole body stiffened. For a second, he didn't say a word, just stared, then quieter. "What night?" "You know what night." My throat burned. "The storm. You got into my bed. You held me. You looked at me like you meant it. And then you left and acted like it was nothing. Like I imagined it." Tyler exhaled sharply and turned away, dragging a hand through his hair. "That's why you've been acting weird," he muttered. "Weird?" I laughed, sharp and joyless. "You don't think you acting like a ghost after that might make things a little weird?" He turned back to me, eyes dark with something I couldn't read. "I didn't know what to do, okay? I didn't mean to mess things up. I just..." He paused, his voice breaking. "I didn't think you'd want me like that. That shut me up." He looked down, his hands clenched at his sides. "I've felt it too, for a while now. I just didn't know if I was reading it wrong. And that night, I needed to feel close to something that wasn't falling apart. You were warm, safe. I swallowed. Hard. I wasn't imagining it." He looked up then, and something in his expression cracked open. "No," he said, "you weren't." The silence after that was different. Not the avoidance kind. Not the awkward kind. This one felt like exhaling after holding your breath underwater too long. We stood there, hearts raw and open, the air between us full of what we'd both been too afraid to say. "I didn't want to ruin what we have," he said finally. "I didn't want to lose you." "You think I haven't been terrified of the same thing?" I whispered. "You think this hasn't been driving me crazy all week?" He laughed, soft and sad. "We're both idiots. Pretty much. There were no kisses, no sudden, sweeping declarations, just two people, bruised by silence, finally daring to speak. Tyler stepped closer, not touching, just there. "I don't know what this is," he said. "I don't know what we're doing, but I don't want to keep pretending like I don't feel it." I nodded, my chest tightening. "Me neither." And for the first time in days, we smiled. Small, cautious, honest, whatever. This thing between us was real, and now we weren't pretending otherwise. After the argument, after the shouting, the blurting, the sudden honesty that left both our nerves frayed, we just stood there. The storm between us had finally broken, but the silence afterward wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was necessary, like the world was giving us space to breathe again. Tyler sat down on the edge of the couch, elbows resting on his knees. I leaned against the wall across from him, heart still thudding, but slower now. We didn't look at each other at first. It was like we were both waiting for the next move, afraid to ruin the fragile truth that had finally come out. Then quietly, Tyler said, "So what now?" I looked up. He wasn't smiling, but his face was soft, honest, unprotected in a way I'd never seen before. And I didn't have an answer. Because how do you explain the swirl of relief, fear, and longing that's been building under your ribs for weeks? How do you speak the kind of want that doesn't come with a clear roadmap? I opened my mouth, then closed it again, shrugged. He stood slowly. took a breath like he was bracing for something. Then he walked toward me. Each step felt like gravity, pulling tighter. He stopped just in front of me, so close I could see the faint freckle under his left eye. So close I could feel the heat from his skin, the faint tremble in the air between us. He didn't ask, didn't rush. He just reached up, hesitated for a heartbeat. Enough time for me to say no, to pull back. And then he touched my face, fingers feather-light against my cheek. And then he kissed me. Slow, careful, honest. There was no fireworks explosion, no cinematic music swelling in the background. Just the steady press of his lips against mine, soft and warm and real, like something clicking into place, like exhaling after holding your breath for far too long. I didn't even realize I'd closed my eyes until they fluttered open. His were still shut, like he was holding onto the moment with everything he had. So I kissed him back. My hands moved without thinking, one settling at the back of his neck, the other curling lightly into his t-shirt. His hands cupped my jaw, thumbs grazing the edges of my skin like he was memorizing me. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't hungry. It was a question and an answer at the same time. Are we really doing this? Yes. Finally, yes. When we pulled apart, it wasn't far. Our foreheads touched, breath mingling, hearts somewhere between racing and resting. I didn't know how long we stood like that, just breathing each other in, holding on like if we moved too fast, the moment might dissolve. He smiled, just a little. Been wanting to do that for a while. I laughed under my breath, forehead still pressed to his. Me too. Thought I was going crazy. You kinda were. I nudged him. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. We didn't say anything more after that. Didn't need to. The silence now was full, not empty. Safe. He eventually wrapped his arms around me, and I let myself sink into him. The weight of him, the warmth, the quiet certainty of this. Not just roommates. Not anymore. Something had shifted. Something had started, and this time, we weren't pretending. It's a Saturday morning in spring, and Tyler's sitting across from me at our favorite little brunch place, the one with mismatched chairs and chipped mugs and a chalkboard menu that changes every week. We're sharing a plate of pancakes, bickering over who got more syrup and casually planning our first trip together. Paris or Iceland? He asks, chewing a bite of bacon. Be honest. Which one screams us more? I raise an eyebrow. I scream more when I'm cold, so probably. Not Iceland, he grins. Paris it is. I reach across the table and grab his hand. Just like that. No hesitation, no nerves. His fingers wrap around mine, warm and easy, like they belong there. Because they do. It's been 5 months since the night everything changed. 5 months since he crawled under my blanket at 2 a.m. and whispered, "Don't move." And I didn't. Not that night. Not since. We're not just roommates anymore. Haven't been for a while. We're something more. Something better. And sometimes I still can't believe how close I came to missing. That first week after the kiss was awkward in the best way. All whispered conversations and tentative touches. Brushing hands in the hallway, falling asleep on the same couch halfway through a movie. Waking up tangled in each other without a clue how it happened. We never rushed it. We didn't have to. Some nights, we still talked for hours, like we were trying to make up for all the conversations we never dared to have when we were just roommates. Other nights, we didn't talk at all, just sat side by side in silence, shoulders pressed together, knowing we didn't need words to feel full. There were bumps, of course, questions, fears. What if we ruined the friendship? What if this was a phase? What if we didn't work once it got real? But we took it slow. We checked in. We learned each other's rhythms. How he needs music while he cooks. How I need silence when I write. how he sleeps better facing the door, how I always steal the blanket and he never complains. One night, a month or so in, I asked him if he remembered what he said that stormy night. The don't move moment that started everything. He smiled and nodded. That was less about keeping you still, he said, and more about not wanting you to go. And now, it means something else entirely. It means stay with me. It means I'm not going anywhere. It means we've found something worth holding on to. Back home, the afternoon fades into that golden hour glow that makes the whole apartment feel like a memory. We lie in bed together, the windows cracked open, birds chirping somewhere in the distance, a lazy breeze drifting through. Tyler's reading a book with his head on my chest, his fingers drawing soft circles on my stomach. I've stopped pretending I care what page he's on. I just watch him, content in a way I didn't know was possible. No masks. No second guessing. Just this. Us. I brush a strand of hair from his forehead and say, barely above a whisper, "Don't move." He looks up and smiles, that quiet, knowing smile that still hits me like it did the first time. "I won't," he says. "Not ever." And I believe him. Because somewhere between midnight storms and morning coffees, inside jokes and silent understandings, dirty dishes and first kisses, we became something real. We're not just roommates. We never really were. We're home together.